Who is going to be the next governor of California? Well, no one knows for sure, but we do have a candidate who I was really impressed with, who I'm going to introduce you to, who I didn't even know existed. And so through our activism, we're able to connect. So welcome to the Freedom Lover Show, my friends. I'm your host, David James Rodriguez. We're building a voluntary world, one relationship at a time. And we have a special guest today who is not just a Ron Paul Republican, as he calls himself, which is beautiful, but also a previously government candidate for Libertarian Party, which I found interesting as well. And so, as you guys know out there, I don't have any hope in the politicians. My hope is in you, the viewers, people taking action, and anybody taking action. I got a lot of respect for. As Ron Paul used the platform to educate myself and millions of people, I think our next guest is going to use the same platform, and he's been doing it for years. So I was grateful to meet him and to bring him to you. So before we jump into all the political conversations, we'd like to welcome Mr. Nickolas Wildstar. Thanks for coming to the show today, sir.
Oh, pleasure indeed to be here and speak with such a freedom fighter such as yourself. Thank you for sitting down and talking to me, David.
Yeah, absolutely. I was amazed of your activism, and people can take a look at some of the videos. You've been doing this for years. So that's what it takes. You know, we got to really chop at the root of the tyranny and peacefully non-comply and expose what's happening and do our best because, life is so precious, as you and the audience members know. And we came to this earth to do something adventurous, exciting, meaningful, impactful. And that's why I'm having you on the show today, just so you can kind of share some of your ideas. And one of the ones that really touched me was the abolishment of the Department of Motor Vehicles. And so some of the people know out there, I've been doing right to travel stuff for a few years and having some trouble, with communicating the law to some of these, God bless these order followers who don't know the difference between a law and a code and all these other things. But a lot of exciting platforms for people who do want to participate in this recall election, and whether it's educating people about freedom or maybe going for the actual win. And so when I first spoke to you, Nickolas, you mentioned that it's winner take all in this recall election. And, a lot of respect to the people in California who have gotten together. I think it's over 2 million signatures to recall Gavin Newsom, who is just destroying small businesses and other people's natural rights. So maybe you want to share a little bit about your background. Then we talk about some of the platforms that you're bringing forth to the stage and why people should support you.
Absolutely. Well, like you said, I'm a Ron Paul Republican. I have been for quite some time. It's my first time running as a Republican candidate. However, I ran in 2018 as a Libertarian and was endorsed by the party. And I ran in 2014. I was an independent. So I'm kind of still getting my feet wet with the political party, affiliation. But Dr. Ron Paul, he pretty much pulled me into libertarianism during the 2008 presidential election. I had been a longtime Democrat and was very enthusiastic about voting for Barack Obama since he was, campaigning on getting money out of politics and, reining in all of the government tyranny. Of course, once he got elected, he didn't do that. And I immediately started for seeking alternatives and stumbled across Dr. Ron Paul, who I didn't know ran against Obama in 2008. So I got on the Ron Paul bandwagon and was supportive of his 2012 presidential campaign. That was my first time ever getting involved with any type of political campaign or just political party affiliation whatsoever, since he was the first and only presidential candidate I've ever voted for as a Republican. But just hearing his message of limited government, reducing government intervention in our day-to-day lives, violations of our natural rights, and of course our taxes, our money, knowing where it comes from, and how it's digging us deeper into debt. And I felt like that was a message that was attractive to unite all people across the entire political spectrum, Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, whatever the case may be. So that's why I'm running as a Ron Paul Republican to do exactly the same thing. But I've had my own fights, or I would say contact with the law in defense of my right to travel. And that's actually what happened was, after learning about Dr. Ron Paul and being told, hey, the government has a list of responsibilities, and that's according to the United States Constitution. It applies to them, not we, the people. So we have the God-given natural right, inherent right, inalienable right to move from one place to another, and once I started to look into contract law and common law and the differences, and just way the different application of law in our country and the de facto government, et cetera, et cetera. The list goes on, as I'm sure you know. But once you learn all of this, it becomes pretty much a challenge of character. It's like, now that you know the truth, are you going to stand on those principles? Or are you going to continue to abide by the status quo, system of obedience that they've created? And I got pulled over for having a tail light out. Really, it was driving while black in Laguna Beach. But I got pulled over for having a tail light out, which I didn't after looking at the dash cam video. But the officer asked me to provide him with my driver's license. He said he wasn't going to give me a ticket, but before he let me go, could he just see my driver's license? I said, no, if you're going to let me go, then why do I need to provide any type of identification? And we had this exchange, and I said, the Constitution. And next thing you know, that turned into six or eight cops pulling me and my wife out of the car forcibly. So it's awful about how they will violate our rights. They will put our bodies in harm's way and threaten our safety simply for the sake of supposedly protecting us by enforcing these laws. They're not only unconstitutional, and that's been discovered through many case law, but they're also a violation of our human rights. Why is it that someone gets to harm me simply because they feel like I should have to produce an ID to travel? So it's sad that we even have to have this conversation, but that's exactly what the law system has done, is it's gotten us conditioned to think that we need permission of the state, and permission of the government to exercise our natural rights as human beings. So I've fought it many times before. Traffic tickets, have tons of videos out there on my YouTube channel, which I'm banned from posting on until October because of lots of what I've said recently. But also what happened recently was I had a trial where I went to court for some traffic citation tickets, recorded that that exchange with the court, and it was my own court case, and I had on my cell phone, and the judge dismissed the traffic ticket but told me to put my cell phone away. I refused to do so, citing the Constitution and Supreme Court case law, whatever. Did not care about any of that.
Right.
Simply do as I say. And so I got kicked out of the courtroom, ended up getting a notice in the mail saying I was being charged with contempt of court. And I was coming from Santa Cruz, of all places, got pulled over. And unbeknownst to me, I had warrants out for my arrest. And that's how I got caught up in this whole debacle. So over the winter, I actually had a trial in Orange County and was found guilty by a jury panel of my peers to say that I was in the wrong for exercising that right to hold our elected officials accountable. So it's sad that we still have people out there that, again, are upholding these unconstitutional, unjust laws for the sake of, playing into this idea that this is the way our society should operate to maintain civility. It's not. We don't need a driver's license to prove we know how to drive. Your ability to drive, and operate a car is proof enough. Now, if you're recklessly driving or drunk driving and it leads into an accident, because not every time it does. There's tons of people that have driven drunk or, had a drink and driven before, but it's never
Right.
led to an accident. So, of course, the politicians, they promote a lot of fear into the public to support their ideas. That, again, you need this identification in order to prove your ability to drive. But of course, that's not the truth. There's tons of accidents all day, every day. And these are licensed drivers, insured drivers, and it hasn't made us any safer. So the best way to do it is reinstate our natural rights, have officers really focus on violent criminals, which is what I would like to do, is redirect their focus towards that, people that are driving recklessly or have driven drunk and caused an accident or harmed somebody. That's who they should be focusing on the most. But I don't want to keep rambling. I'm pretty sure I could keep talking forever.
No, that's a great point, because when I've had encounters in the last 18 months, multiple encounters with different cops, different counties, I ask them, what's the law that I've broken or violated? They said a code. I said, is a
Right.
code a law? And unfortunately, these cops, they just don't know. So the cops are kept compartmentalized in the dark, because if they're kept ignorant, then they don't realize they're being used by the politicians to be the jackboot or the enforcer of these tyrannical codes, which violate our natural rights. And so you brought up a great point, which is, if there's harm done, then that is a wrong, right? We own our
Yeah,
life, our liberty, and our property. And so as long as we don't harm anyone else's life, liberty, or property, we're good. And we're acting
exactly.
in honor and in integrity. And when these officers are out there initiating the contact and then kidnapping us, also known as arresting us, or extorting us, also known giving us fines and citations. We've been out here on the beach in Santa Cruz this last year or so, and some of us got arrested. Some of us are getting citations, and the
Right.
crime is being on the beach after hours. And it's like, we went and looked at the sign recently, and it says a sign. It says no fires or drinks and stuff, but there's no code, there's no authority. It's just literally a sign. And so what's happening is humanity is starting to remember who we are, in that we are the sons and daughters of God, or nature, whatever you choose to believe, audience members,
Right.
but you're significant. And so Nickolas and I are out here trying to spread freedom in whatever way we can, because it is everything, in my opinion. Freedom is the whole ball game. My life
Exactly.
is next, love is next. And if we don't stand up for our kids and our grandkids, then we actually are responsible for the world
Right.
that we live in, and God bless our parents and grandparents and all the ancestors before us, that this is the world we inherited from them, and they unknowingly, unwittingly were living a good life. And this is why comfort and success can be a double-edged sword, because now you can get apathetic, you can get lazy, you can get comfortable.
Yeah.
And as some of the original framers wrote, to have freedom, you have to stay vigilant. Eternal vigilance
Right.
is the cost of freedom. And so this is the Great Awakening with Ron Paul, myself, as well as 2008 and 2012. I said, man, this guy is amazing. He delivered 4,000 babies, and he has upheld his oath to the Constitution. I thought, this guy's going to win. He got most donations
I
from the
know, right?
military. And then all of a sudden you see on the debate stage, he gets like 30 seconds, and then the next guy gets 13 minutes. And you're like, this thing seems kind of rigged. So
Yeah.
if you want to talk about the winner take all concept, because normally, and I'm not super knowledgeable in the political process, but there's a primary between the Republicans and the Democrats, and then you go to the general election. So you have
Right.
about 4 weeks left until the recall election is here. And the winner take all philosophy was a very interesting. You're in go mode right now, and you're looking for volunteers, people to get involved. And you feel free to share what you think is necessary for victory or for impact, and what your plans are, because you already have the Wildstar2022.com site. So yeah, right there behind you, already ready to go, because you're committed to freedom and you see this as a pathway to educate the people and perhaps even change the conversation as Ron Paul did. So what do you think is necessary for the next 4 weeks, or what's on your mind that people that want to get involved, they can reach out and support you, and start promoting these pro-liberty solutions that respect natural rights, respect the individual, instead of placating to the politicians, the establishment, and these corporations who are just pillaging small
Right.
businesses and even individuals.
Yeah, I mean, it boils down to just our human rights, and they are being violated across the board, whether it's if you agree with masks or disagree, or agree with vaccinations or disagree, or agree with the shutdowns or not. You know, we should all have the right, the human right to choose. Right now, that right is being taken away from us by people that we employ with our tax dollars, with our vote, and with our consent, to do a certain job. And if they're not doing that job according to our liking, according to the Declaration of Independence, we got the right to remove them. So we need to start acting on that duty as American citizens. So when it boils down to what we can do, we definitely got to stay vigilant and we got to stay active in getting out the word. We can't be reliant upon the powers that be, the mainstream media, the old guard establishment, to provide us with the information detrimental to our freedom and to our liberty. Because if they're the ones that are enslaving us and oppressing us, of course, they're never going to provide us with the tools and keys that we need to liberate ourselves. So it's imperative that we pay attention to what's really going on, look beyond the veil, you know, and in between the lines, so to speak, and stop paying attention to the glitz and glamour. Like with this recall election, it's a lot of people that are distracted by some of the mainstream candidates, celebrities that are running, and thinking that they are the only ones that have a shot, so to speak. They don't. With this special election, it's winner takes all, like you said. So the people of California will be asked two questions. One, would you like to recall Gavin Newsom, which is yes or no? And in the event the majority of the people of California vote yes, he gets fired. The second question is, who would you like to replace him? So whoever gets the majority of that wins. They're the new governor of California, and that win could be with a slight margin as little as 15 to 20%. That's what's been happening with polls recently that have been taken and showing, you know, people like Larry Elder and Caitlyn Jenner and, you know, John Cox or whatever leading. But what they don't show is the amount of people that are undecided, that have voted none of the above. And that's over half of the people that have participated in all of these polls. So if that translates over to what could happen on election day on September 14th, it's a possibility again. I could easily become the next California governor with 15 to 20%. And this is different than a typical gubernatorial election like what we'll be having next year, is because it's harder for somebody such as myself, an outsider, you know, who doesn't have much money, to have an opportunity to actually win and get in, because of that primary, which you first have to get a majority in as a candidate to participate in the general election in November. And since California does have a top two primary system, that means the top two candidates, regardless of political party, ends up becoming the only two candidates that we get to choose from in the general election. So that means we can have two Republicans, two Democrats, you know, two libertarians, or whatever the case may be, go head to head. And that's happened time and time again here in California since that proposition has passed. Kamala Harris, she was running up against another Democrat when she was running as a senator. Just recently, Nancy Pelosi ran against another Democrat in her district. So we're seeing more of that one party rule in the state of California by the Democratic establishment, because as a result of that law change. So this is the perfect opportunity for the people of California to actually steal an election away from the establishment, that third house that runs Sacramento.
Mm, yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, because we're kept so ignorant about the political process, and many of us freedom lovers were like, oh, we have no hope in it. But you can use this as an opportunity. As you said, this is a prime opportunity because you don't have to have the primary and the general. You just go everything for the next 4 weeks. So
Right.
if somebody and people out there, volunteers, they can go to your website, they can reach out to you and find ways to take leadership in their own counties and maybe do some guerrilla marketing campaigns. And who knows, like what I see, and this is what the kind of establishment has done for a while, is they use the entertainers to get out
Mhm.
there, whether it's these, I don't even know all these entertainers, Beyonce or Rihanna, whoever it is.
Right.
They're like, yeah, the candidate, and people are like, oh, okay, these celebrities trying to promote these politicians. But when someone's genuine, like Ron Paul and yourself, who actually believes in freedom, you don't want to violate people. You don't want to harm people. You actually want to use the system for what it was intended to do. And just so the audience members know, some of the new people, the Bill of Rights was supposed to put restrictions on the government, not on the individual. And
Exactly.
so the First Amendment, freedom of speech and assembly and religion and right to bear arms, number second, like all these fundamental rights were supposed to be protected by the Bill of Rights. And because they don't teach us about this in school, we don't know what we don't know. We're kept in the dark. And now the light is starting to turn on for many of us to say, man, it seems like the individual is being harmed and violated, and that the corporations are being protected. And
Right.
this whole mask and vaccine stuff, I was into this a few years ago with the forced vaccines in school, which when you raise your child, hey, you can get the vaccine for them if you want or not, right? I'm pro freedom of choice.
Exactly.
But these manufacturers aren't liable. You cannot sue them. And I could not believe the 1986 Vaccine Injury Act protects these billion-dollar drug companies for being held accountable for any bad side effects, including death. So I said, man, this sounds like a cartel. But for people out there, that want to get the injection or mask, do it at your own risk. But just know that there are large industries at play here, and these guys are making a great profit using coercion or fear with the media.
Right.
And the way through seems to be through truth, through honesty, through sincerity, through facts, through peaceful dialogue and communication, because they use our emotions, they use race, they use gender, they use religion, they use everything to divide the lower people, just regular normal people. I'm not saying,
Mhm.
like lower people. We're like normal. We're just peaceful
Right.
people. We don't believe in, profiteering off
99%.
death. Yeah, right. Yeah, the majority of people, we're just normal people. But then if they're not conscious, they're not aware of how significant their life is and how precious this moment is, this breath, then they just give it away. And I heard another medical freedom advocate this last maybe 2 months ago, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., he said this last year, I was shocked to see what happened to Americans. They didn't have their rights taken away, they gave them away.
Exactly.
And this is an essential point if you want to talk to about the importance of not cooperating with unlawful orders or not consenting to these tyrannical laws or orders or codes or whatever they want to call them. If it violates your body, if it violates your religion, these basic fundamental freedoms, you don't have to participate. So what do you feel about consent and non-cooperation? What is your take on what's happened last year and kind of where we're at with this whole COVID thing?
Well, it's definitely been violated in many ways. I mean, especially now with them considering that I guess we're past the voluntary stage of people taking the coronavirus vaccine, like the mayor, Bill de Blasio, said recently, So for them to even be considering, going door to door and verifying who's been vaccinated or not. Here in the state of California, the governor mandating that all state employees, frontline workers, educators be vaccinated before the end of September, puts people in a very damaging situation, because now they're faced with having to lose their livelihoods over, a medical decision, which should be, private, as well as, again, their own personal choice, or again, put themselves in harm's way by having this coronavirus experimental use and authorized shot injected into their body. I mean, they don't talk about CRISPR. They don't talk about the herpes zoster outbreaks, the vaccine shedding. They don't talk about the amount of people that have died from coronavirus that have had pre-existing conditions. They don't talk about the VAERS, reports talking of letting us know how many people have died from these vaccinations. So you're right about us not fully being informed. And it's sad that we have put so much trust in our elected officials. And when we are misinformed by them, we're so aghast. We're like, I can't believe they would lie to us. It's like, well, their job was never to keep you fully in the loop anyway. When it's apparent that they're in the pockets of these corporations, they're in the pockets of, big pharma and the unions and whoever else is keeping their campaigns funded so they can occupy these public positions: governor, mayor, city council, president, whatever the case may be, these positions of authority that we've created to deal with protecting our rights, so it's sad that the contract between us and them has been broken. Not only that Bill of Rights and Declaration of Independence and Constitution, but just the natural contract of, hey, I trust you to do a job. I'm going to pay you to do that job, and you deliver. And they're not delivering right now. It's sad that the people that we've hired in law enforcement are put in this predicament to where they're not allowed to exercise common sense and instead enforce that contract law, knowing it goes against their better intuition. So I see no reason why officers should have to enforce, drug laws, whether it be possession of marijuana or, marijuana use, or driving without a license, or you not having tags on your car. I mean, who are you really harming by doing these things? Recording in court,
First Amendment, what happened to that?
Exactly. Yeah. And what Ninth Amendment, what happened to that? There's so many rights that we have as human beings that cannot be listed on a piece of paper. And that's exactly what the Ninth Amendment says. Yet you don't see any elected officials talking about that at all. They're too busy telling us that we need to adhere to their rules versus vice versa. So I think it's time for people to get involved. That's why I'm asking, hey, visit my website, wildstar2022.com, find out more about what I have to offer, pledge, become a volunteer, get involved with the campaign. I'm completely 100% grassroots and crowd-funded and helped by the people of the community. So get involved however you can, spread the word. You have candidates out there paying for Facebook ads and YouTube ads and any kind of ad that they can. But when you don't have all of those funds available, you need that manpower. So if they're paying for your attention, spend it wisely, invest that into someone that matters. So share my message, my videos with others. We can make it viral organically. That's what needs to happen right now for us to, again, topple the powers that be that are attempting to control this election. We created this recall with us standing up against dictators like Gavin Newsom. It's do as I say, not as I do type of approach to governing. So we came together to make that happen. Republicans are outnumbered registered voters 2-1. So a lot of Democrats were needed to make that recall happen, despite what Gavin Newsom wants to say. So thank you very much, people of California, for coming together and revolting against this administration. But we got to seal the deal. And the only way that that's going to happen is truly electing a representative of the people of the community. And that's me, Nickolas Wildstar.
Absolutely. Yeah. And see, when you look at a candidate, someone you can trust, Ron Paul was somebody like, I could trust that guy, you know, and you look at your track record, like, man, this guy's good. So if you want to trust somebody rather than the perhaps conservative talk show hosts or other people who I think it might be kind of a power grab, right? They're like, oh my gosh, Governor Newsom's going to be gone. So now who's going to have the ring of power? But if you audience members go look at Nickolas's track record, you see he's been out there pounding the pavement for years for freedom. And, you know, this is somebody who really does believe in freedom and liberty and personal responsibility and voluntary consensual relationships. So if you look at the various candidates, you know, take a strong look here at this gentleman and some of his videos, and you can see that someone is actually standing up for freedom. Because in my case, I've noticed, and the reason I've gotten loud the last 2 years is because I go to different events and I'm like, where are the freedom lovers? Where are the mad people who just love freedom and just want to be left alone by the government? And it turns out there's a handful of us, but it takes some courage to get on camera. It takes some courage to put your name on a ballot, to, you know, put your name out there and actually say, this is what I stand for. This is what I believe in. Because many people, it's just easier to stay in the closet and say, oh, I'm going to be a couch quarterback, you know, and just kind of call the shots without getting in the arena. But my friends, now is the time to get into the arena, whether it is helping out with Nickolas's campaign or opting out of the system or homeschooling or building your own gardens or whatever it is. My friends, you can see that the systems which have existed, mainly the financial systems, the education systems, the media systems, the pharmaceutical systems, all these things have been controlled by a handful of hyper wealthy psychopaths who have no regard for you or your offspring. And so now they're being revealed. The internet has changed the whole game. We're only 25, maybe 30 years into the internet. They've lost control of information. And so now they have to use fear. So the way you combat fear, in my opinion, is through love of yourself, of your family, of your faith, of nature, whatever you love. It is that time to get out there and get involved in some way, take action. Don't sit back and do nothing, because this is the great self-ownership awakening, in my opinion. And God bless Ron Paul, the godfather of this thing. And even Rand Paul's calling out to civilly disobey. And, you know, they can't arrest us all, is what he said on his recent video that got him kicked off YouTube, I think. So you can see the intergenerational aspect of freedom and how we have to pass it down. We didn't just get here in the last 18 months. Many of you guys know this has been a buildup for a decade or two, a generation or two, and now they're going for the jugular of human consciousness. And I got a lot of respect for you, Nickolas, for taking the mantle of leadership. And maybe the last point here, we'll talk about a little bit about the commitment, because when we spoke previously, you're like, man, I'm going to run in 2022 as well. And you mentioned some of the previous runs you've had in your career so far. But it takes time, it takes energy and effort, and few people who don't do that, they don't understand the commitment level that it takes, the toll on your mind, your family, your energy, your own finances, and you know, even risk out there. So you want to talk a little bit about commitment, and then we can wrap up?
It's interesting that you actually bring this up, because my wife and I were just talking about this earlier, because time is limited with my family, as you could possibly imagine, with me being on the campaign trail and election day being a little less than a month away. And we're at the park, and we wanted to take out our son to go out at the playground. And we were having some fun. We were supposed to have a picnic, and I get a call from a concerned voter who wanted to ask me some questions. And I let her know, hey, I'm out at the park with my family right now, and we're trying to have this picnic. But we ended up having a 15-minute conversation, and my wife, she's like, hey, wrap it up, you know. But a lot of people don't take that into consideration, just the sacrifice of little things like that. You know, my wife and I, we've been together for 10 years, and we just had our first child. His second birthday is coming up in September, you know, September 1st.
Awesome.
And thank you. So
congratulations. Yeah, it's great, man. The future.
Yes, exactly. Like you said, getting them primed and ready, man. But how can I do that when I'm committed towards helping the people of my community and helping them and their families. I'm even taking time to ignore my own. So I'm doing a lot to sacrifice to commit towards wanting to serve as a representative. I can only do it for so long. I just celebrated my 40th birthday, and want to spend the next 10 years of my life raising my son in an environment where I feel like his liberty and his freedom and right to live as a human being is being cultivated by society instead of being threatened. And I fear that that's what's happening right now. That's why I'm being as proactive as possible so I can, fight against that reality. But I need the help from the people to join me behind that. And if they, turn away from me or, dissuade, whatever the case may be, dismiss me because the amount of money that I may not have, or the amount of publicity I may not have, or the amount of supporters, whatever the case may be, that's not going to help. We need to band together to say, hey, this is what we want. And of course, it's not going to be supported by those institutions. So we can't be dependent upon them to provide us with better leadership, more adequate leadership. And that's going to come first if we have somebody that knows what the people of the community want. And that's less government. I know that for sure. And absolutely. I let people know I don't have all of the solutions to everything, but I'm going to consult those people of the community that do. And those are the people that I'm going to appoint, not, corporatists, lobbyists, or special favors, or whatever the case may be. I'm going to consult the people of the community, and that's going to be the relationship that we build together to improve California. But I would love for people to help me with this election. If I don't win in this special election, I am planning on being on the ballot again in 2022. Like I said, it's going to be a bit more difficult, but if I make a good showing in this election, then you can definitely count on me to be there again next year.
Awesome. Yeah, so go to his website, Wildstar 2022. And just so you know, Nickolas and some of the other viewers out there, Ron Paul never passed one piece of legislation. He was elected, in his own congressional district, but he would go out there and he would make these bills. And, it took him 25 years or so to, he ran for Libertarian presidential candidate, and yes. Then I think presidential 2 other times. But he used the platform, and he's made more social impact, in my opinion, for freedom than he could have passing bills or doing other things. So right. If you other people out there want to get involved, understand the time and the effort is needed. And Nickolas is putting in both those things, and it takes a toll on his family. And so if you have financial resources, help him out. If you have creative ability, artistic, editing, exactly. I think it was the video from Ron Paul when he was educating Rudy Giuliani about 9/11 and what causes real terrorism. That video, when he stood firm on a national platform, and then that video was like, who's this guy speaking truth to the mayor of New York City? And turns out Ron Paul was a rock solid guy, still is. I think he's mid 80s, close to 90s now, yeah. Riding a bicycle, every day or so. Yeah, having a strong heart, and he's committed, So that's what it takes. It takes a long-term commitment. And yes. I view it kind of like the Titanic, it's like this whole system. We're trying to change it quickly, but we got to move it slowly to avert the open totalitarianism, which is coming, which is here in some aspects. So yes. Thank you, Nickolas, for being a courageous man out there and standing for freedom. And so any people that want to help out, get involved, you can look him up. And he is going to be in Santa Cruz, it looks like this weekend. So stay connected in the comments. We'll find some location you can meet up and maybe go have a drink or take a photo and ask some more personal questions. But my friends, freedom is the issue of our lifetime. And it's such a beautiful thing once you feel it and it's the right side of history. So if that's your final words, or any final words I should give to you, Nickolas, before we let loose on this interview here.
Well, definitely don't compromise your liberty for security. We've been warded against that. And Benjamin Franklin, I believe, is the one who said, you know, people who trade liberty for security deserve neither. And so, with us having been warned, we got to take heed to those words right now more than ever, because whether you support a vaccine passport or a vaccine shot or whatever the case may be, we should always have the right to choose. And we shouldn't be supportive of anybody that wants to violate that natural human right of other human beings. That should be antithetical to us as Americans to feel as if we should be violating someone else's privacy, someone else's inherent right, or, you know, to call their body their own and treat their body as their own instead of property of others. And that's what's happening right now. We have a government that's saying that we need to treat our body as property of theirs to make the rest of the community happy. That should not be something that we should have to compromise ever. So it's time for us to band together. This is our time right now than ever. You know, revolutions are generational. So I feel like it's our generation's time to step up to the plate, do what's necessary for ourselves as well as the next generation. So please, wildstar2022.com, go wild and bring back liberty.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nickolas. The last point I'll just kind of piggyback on is, my friends, who owns your body? Really,
Right.
this is your property. This is a fundamental question that all liberty comes from: property rights. This is your life. This is your person, your body, and your labor. This is what you created. God gave you a gift, or nature. And so what you create is yours. And, you know, earth belongs to the people, but your body belongs to yourself. And
Right.
as the other side of freedom is personal responsibility. So let's take personal responsibility. Let's take our freedom back by exercising it. Feel free to go to his website, support him any way you can, but you got to remember who you are. You are a significant man or woman on the earth, and your life is significant. It is a temporary thing. We're all going to be under 6 feet under in 100 years. So
Right.
understand the preciousness of the moment. Spend time with your loved ones. Love, share peace, go out there and express yourself, be who you are. And thanks for joining us on the Freedom Lovers Show, where we are building a voluntary world, one relationship at a time, one conversation at a time, one interaction, one voluntary consensual relationship is all we're asking for, my friends. So thanks for Nickolas for joining us. We'll see you next time as we talk about freedom and the solutions to the tyranny that we see. My friends, it is open. The emperor has no clothes. Freedom is the issue of our lifetime. So we'll see you next time as we spread freedom and build a voluntary world. Thanks, everybody.
Well, live liberty.